Good morning and welcome to Revive FM 94.0 on the Power Hour with your host today, myself, Louise Power. This show is about community matters, diversity and inclusion, a platform for women, leadership, entrepreneurship and inspirational stories. And today I am honored and exceptionally excited actually to have a contact of mine, a friend of mine, Gavin McCormack. He's joining us all the way from Australia. Welcome to the show, Gavin.
Welcome. Thank you. Yes, I feel honored to be here. Such a privilege to be with you, Louise.
Thank you so much. And I'm very conscious of the fact that I'm bright and bubbly because it's early in the morning and it's your night.
It is, but I'm so excited that I don't need to worry about being bright and bubbly. We've been invited onto your show. It's always entertaining for me, so I'm happy to be here. Don't worry. Yes, it is 11 p.m., so it's going quite late.
And tell us where you are in Australia. Whereabouts are you?
I'm actually in Melbourne. I live in Sydney, but I flew down to Melbourne for a week of work. We're doing some new educational programs down here in Melbourne, so I'm down on the south coast. It's very beautiful with clear blue skies and crisp winter's mornings.
Oh, that's nice. So they're sort of having a similar season. So at the moment they're having, is there winter in Melbourne?
No, it's our summer now, but because you're on the south coast of Australia, you get this Antarctic wind blowing in and it can be a bit chilly at night time.
Oh, wow. Well, I haven't visited Australia yet, but I do know it's different season. I know it's a beautiful, beautiful place. So I hope to visit one day. And I've been really looking forward to having a conversation with you ever since we connected. There's so many awesome things you've done. So I think I'll just start by just a little bit about your backstory, because when we first got in contact with each other, you spoke to me about coming from the UK and then migrating over to Australia. So tell us where you're from in the UK and just a little bit about your sort of backstory, your journey.
Okay, well, born in Leeds, in the north of England, as you probably know where that is.
Yeah.
Born in actually a place called Seacroft, the biggest council estate in Europe for, I think, 20 years in a row, the biggest council estate in Europe. And I was raised by my mum, single mum. My dad left before I was born, so it was just me and my mum for a long time. And, just getting on in northern England, doing what you do, going to school, getting bullied. You know how it is, rough and ready, playing football, all that kind of stuff. And then, I got to about 18 and wanted to go to university. I had a cousin who went to university, became a doctor, and I used to look up to him and thought, I want to go to university too. And, did quite well in school and sat down with my mum with the old UCAS booklet. I'm sure many of your listeners have done UCAS before. And, you lay it all out and you say, oh, what am I going to be then? So what am I going to do with my life? No idea. And anyway, I studied economics and geography and computer science. And said to my mum, look, okay, let's go for it, Mum. What shall I do with my life? And she said, why don't you just be a teacher? You're good with kids. Kids love you. And she said, you'll never work for the man if you're a teacher. You never work for some guy. I remember she said, you'll never work for a guy driving around in a Mercedes smoking cigars. You'll work for the people. So I became a teacher and then went to Sheffield, moved to Sheffield Hallam University, became a teacher there. It was lovely. And then I just opened up this whole gateway because, when you're a teacher and you're a young man and you speak English, suddenly the world becomes your oyster and you can do whatever you want. There's just jobs everywhere. And then I just went on this wild, intrepid trip of just traveling. And I quickly moved to France, lived there for a couple of years, played football in France, and then went down to Spain, lived on the top of Gibraltar Rock for a bit. By the way, this is not like a silver spoon in my mouth thing. This is just me like getting a train to a place and then going, scrambling for a job. And
I see the journey. I see when I visualize you traveling. I visualize a backpack. I visualize you kind of like making decisions maybe at the last minute and just going with the flow.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly right, actually. And quite a funny story because I was going to go traveling with a friend of mine we're going to go move to Gibraltar and he'd saved £10,000. I don't know what happened. He got some money somewhere. I don't know how he got that kind of cash. And I had no money, actually. I hadn't told him that I had no money for this trip. And it was 2 days to go before we were off. And I'd been teaching in this school. And honestly, it was like synchronicity. This kind of miracle happened where I had to tell him the next day that I hadn't been honest with him and I had no money for this trip. I had zero. And we were supposed to go for a year. And then the phone rang. It was this crazy thing. The phone rang. I answered the phone and it was the Department of Education in England. And the lady said, "Hello, is that Gavin McCormack?" And I said, "Speaking." And she said, "Oh, I'm ringing from the Department of Education. Can I just check what degree did you get? Did you get a third, a 2-2, a 2-1, or a first?" And I said, "Oh, I got a 2-1." And she said, "Oh, you know what? We've had you down as a third for the last 2.5 years at that school. We've been paying you £7 short a day. So we're going to put it all in your account this afternoon. So this afternoon you'll get £9,363. And I was like, "Oh my God, this is a miracle."
It was meant to be.
It was a miracle. Anyway, I told my friend, "Look, I was going to have to give you bad news tomorrow, but no, I don't have to." And off we went on this trip. And, we just ended up traveling everywhere we possibly could. Went to Malaysia, China, South Korea, everywhere. And I ended up in Australia in 2004. And then I got here, and it's hard to leave here when you arrive in Australia because, it's just beautiful here. You've got everything, beautiful weather. You've got the ocean. You've got sharks, jellyfish, crocodiles. No, I'm just joking. They're just scary.
Literally, you have everything there, and I'm listening. So I'm so intrigued by your journey. And when you're speaking, it's almost as if I'm going on that journey with you, and I'm visualizing everything. And I'm going back to actually that council estate, growing up with a single mum in Leeds, and you spoke about bullying, and you also spoke about going to university and looking up to a cousin of yours. And I think it's really good that you had somebody that you could look up to. And although it was sort of like the buy on buy, and bullying sort of came with the jurisdiction of kind of growing up on a council estate and kind of like your experience, did some of these things that you went through, being bullied at school and then seeing that your cousin had gone to university and changed his life around, was these some of the things that gave you inspiration to want to work with children?
Yeah, well, look, what happened actually was my mom, bless her, when between 0 and 5 years of age, she couldn't really look after me because she was on her own trying to survive. And so I lived with my granddad a lot of the time, and my granddad was a carpenter. So when I say carpenter, he used to build dog kennels for everyone in the community. But he was really good with woodwork and stuff. So I lived with him, and he was a really good storyteller. He just told me stories all day, continuously. Anyway, my mum, bless her, she met a new husband, and they had a couple of children. And I've got 2 stepbrothers now. They're not really stepbrothers; they're my brothers. Actually, I love them like my own. But they wanted to do the best for us, so we left Winmore, this really terrible place where the council estate was. It's probably not terrible anymore, but we left there and we moved to a place called Horsforth, and that's a really nice kind of posh village because there was a nice school there. And so it was a really good idea, and I'm glad we went there. But we arrived at school, and everybody had money, and everybody had fast cars and houses, and we lived in a council house. And I had half-mast trousers with holes in the knees, and instead of having Nike, I had Knicks, and instead of having Coca-Cola, I had cola. And so you'd go to school, and you'd just be the poor kid. And at the beginning, it doesn't really matter, you don't really care. But then you get a bit older, and you do care. When you get a bit older, you start to care.
Yeah.
And I wanted to have what the other kids had. I didn't want to be that kid anymore. So I got a job when I was 14, just working in a washing dishes in a restaurant, and I work every night. Then I got a job in a supermarket at 15 at £1.96 an hour. Like I got almost zero. And I had 5 jobs when I was 16. And the only reason I had 5 jobs is because I wanted to have what the other children had. I didn't want to admit that my parents couldn't afford it. So I'd go to school with Nike, but little did they know that I was working every night in this washing pots in a restaurant just so I could go to school with these stupid shoes on. And I learned how to work hard quickly and learned the value of money like really, really early on. And I don't take money for granted now. Like I don't have much stuff, but I don't waste anything on anything. But it was that whole transition of trying to fake it until you make it. It was really hard. I don't do that anymore. I don't do that anymore. I learned over the years, it's just better to just be who you are and be honest and just go, this is who I am. If you don't like it, then you can lump it. It's just...
Don't like it, lump it.
It's better to be like that, I think.
Absolutely, 100%. Be your organic self, and bring your whole self. And that's what I love about the diversity, equity, inclusion work that I do. It's about just fitting in the way that you are and not having to pretend to turn up as somebody else so that you join a part of a uniform of something that is kind of accepted to be the standard way of doing things. And yeah, it's so inspirational. Like, your story is really inspirational. And I know that because of your own experiences as well, you've also written some books, and there's so many amazing things. But I'm going on this journey with you now. So I've seen you've gone from you've traveled and you've gone to a different area, and I can see that being in that area, you're now having to live up to an expectation where of the people where you live. So really, you've come from a socio-economical difference, haven't you? You've traveled what we call like social mobility from one place to another, and that made such a big change. And then when you traveled and everything else, and you had this amazing experience, you then at some point started to build your own schools. How did that come about?
So I guess we'll just take it back a little bit, if you don't mind, to arriving in Australia. And I was lucky enough to live in Sheffield. I went to uni in Sheffield, and Sheffield is a beautiful town. It's just this really bizarre town where everyone's lovely and welcoming, and quite the opposite of what I experienced in Leeds, where it was a bit more harsh and brash, and you'd look at someone and they'd say, "What are you looking at? What are you looking at?" And you go to Sheffield, it's only 10 miles down the street. You don't get that anymore. People just go, "Hey up, love, what are you up to?" Like, suddenly you're like, "Oh, I'm allowed to look at people now. This is nice." Yeah. So I didn't want to leave there. I didn't want to go back to Leeds. And so the good thing about Sheffield is it's really diverse culturally. There's so many Pakistanis there, Bangladeshis, a lot of Muslim culture. And I worked in a little school, and it was a Muslim school. And, I was teaching refugees who'd come from Pakistan. And there wasn't a lot going on in Pakistan. There wasn't a lot of refugees in terms of war or anything, but there were refugees coming over from Pakistan, and I had them in my class. And I learned how to speak Urdu, and I learned how to speak Arabic, not fully, but I knew how to get by. And there's something in Arabic called tajweed, whether you know it or not. It's like the pronunciation of Arabic. You call it tajweed in Arabic. And for some bizarre reason, I studied German at school, and there's a kind of it feels like there's a frog in your throat when you're speaking in German, and it relates to Arabic too. It has the same kind of twang to it. Anyway, I came to Australia. I needed a job quickly because I've been traveling for 2 years and I had no cash. So I needed a job. So I looked up a job, and there was a job going in a Muslim school.
£9,000 finished.
Sorry?
The £9,000 was finished.
That finished a long time before. I'd been, begging and working on the streets and doing other stuff, teaching here, there, and everywhere, and just trying to make ends meet. But yeah, it did. £9,000 doesn't last you very long. I learned that the hard way. But then I got this job in his Arabic school, Muslim school in Sydney, and I went to the interview. And this lady, Mrs. Tofi, was the principal, and she was very mean and strict, and kids were petrified of her. But she was actually really lovely. And I sat down for the interview, and she said, "Assalamu alaikum," and I said, "Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh," and she said, "MashaAllah, do you speak Arabic?" And I said, "I speak a little bit of Arabic." And she said, "Can you recite the Quran?" And I said, I can do the halakha if you want the morning prayer. And she said, "If you can do the morning prayer, the job's yours." And I said, "A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, bismillahir rahmanir rahim, alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin." She said, "You've got the job." And I was like, "Oh my God, this is the easiest interview I've ever had in my life." So I got the job, and I worked in this Muslim school. And it just so happened that this Muslim school was a Muslim school for refugees who come from Syria, Afghanistan, Iraq, and Iran. And I worked there for 10 years. I loved it so much. It was beautiful because you got to work with people who had nothing. And I'd had nothing previously. I'd not come from that because I hadn't been through what they'd been through. They'd been persecuted and there was war. I hadn't been through that. And I'm not claiming I had, but I knew what it was like to feel like bottom of the pile and the underdog. So I had these kids in my class, and they were 6, 7, 8, 9. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to make you feel like an absolute king when you're in my classroom. When you walk in this door, going to make you feel amazing. Going to do everything I possibly can to make your day as good as it can possibly be. But then what happened was I realized that these kids had come from real hardship. Like, probably some of your listeners will understand, and anyone who watches the news will know that, real hardship is really, really bad. It's I don't want to say it on your show, but, you've seen it on the news. You know what happens in these places.
Yes.
And so they left these war-torn countries. They travel across the whole world. They got on boats to come to Australia. Imagine traveling from Afghanistan to Indonesia overland, like with no money. Like that's That's crazy. And then you get on a boat and the boat sinks in the sea on the way to Australia, And then what happens is you get rescued. But then you get taken not to Australia, but to Manus Island, to a refugee camp on an island prison. And you stay there for 5 years. And then you come to Australia. And when you get to Australia, yeah, 5 years, yeah. And then you go to school. And you're expected to learn how to add fractions together with different denominators. And the teacher says, we're going to learn fractions. And the kid goes, do you know what I've been through? You have any idea what I've been through? You're like, I'm not ready to learn fractions yet. So anyway, I saw this happening all the time. These kids weren't ready. And so what we did was I decided we were going to do, we were going to have a 50-50 split in the classroom. It was going to be that you'd been through a lot and I wanted to know about that. And so did everybody else. So you told us your story. Part of your education was that you had a chance to speak about what had happened to you and how you felt and what you'd been through. And what we soon realized as a class is that everyone had been through something, including myself. And suddenly there was this equality in the room. We were all equal. We're all humans. Something had happened to all of us. And we could all console each other and look after each other and comfort each other. And suddenly there was this equality. It doesn't matter where you come from or what had happened to you. We all just had this therapy now, and the therapy was each other. And and then, I worked there for 10 years, but I hadn't built any schools at this point. But I had said to a woman at that school, one of the teachers, I said, I'm going to write a book one day about a penguin that gets bullied. And she said, you can't be an author, Gavin. You've never written a book in your life. Don't even think about it. And I thought, I'll show you one day. I'll show you who can write a book. Anyway, then I left that school and I went to train as a Montessori teacher. And for anyone who doesn't know Montessori, it's just another way of teaching the national curriculum. It's exactly the same. It's just another way of delivering lessons. Very similar to what I just described in the Muslim school, where it's a 50-50 split where, I'm a human, you're a human. I don't know everything. I do know some stuff, but you also know some stuff. I know you 6, but let's just share this room. And it's really about that. And so I trained as a Montessori teacher another 4 years. And a big part of Montessori is called giving service. So in the classroom, you say to the kids say to you, I'd like to make a poster. And you say, that's an amazing idea. If you can tell me how that poster is going to improve somebody else's life, you can make it. In fact, you can do anything you want in this school, anything at all, if what you're about to do will improve somebody else's life in any way. It doesn't matter how small. So if little Tommy says, I want to make a poster on dinosaurs because I want to take it home and teach my little brother about the Tyrannosaurus Rex, you say, you can make that poster. No problem, off you go, because you're going to do something good with it. But if it's going in your book for a tick and a gold star and 5 points and everything else, you can't do it because no one cares about that. The book doesn't care about your poster, and neither do I. I do care, actually, but it's not going to impact me. You can do anything you want in here as long as it impacts somebody else's life. And I wanted to model that to the kids in my class. I wanted to tell them about what they had potentially the ability to do. So I decided to build some schools myself. I thought, I'm going to try something big. So I said to the kids, I'm going to build a school in the Himalayas. I'm going to do this. And the kids are like, what do you mean? What do you mean you're going to build a school? Yeah. So I flew to the Himalayas and in my school holidays, and I found a place, and I found a little school that was all dilapidated. I met the lady there, and I came back to school and took some photos of her. And I said to the kids, this is Padma. Her name was Padma. I said, this is Padma. She teaches in this school. And, if I could share the pictures with your listeners, you'd be shocked. It's like a dusty prison cell in the mountains where there's nothing inside, but there's 30 kids, one piece of A4 paper and a biro.
Hold that thought. We're going to go into a commercial breaks shortly. So I just hold that thought about the school.
I've got a biro in my hand, so I won't forget where I was.
I am so inspired. And I know so many people within our network, when this goes out, are going to be so inspired, because I feel like I'm watching a movie, honestly. But this is real life. These are real children's life, Gavin, that you've been changing. And I'm so super inspired. Please do not touch that dial. You are locked into the Power Hour with your host today, myself, Louise Power, and my guest, Gavin McCormack. Will be right back after the commercial break.
Let's connect with the Holy Quran. Minhaj Dawah Project distributes the Holy Quran in plain simple English for free. You can donate £3 and sponsor a Quran to a loved one, a neighbour, a colleague or a friend. We distribute Qurans totally free of charge across the whole UK, including in prisons. Please call us now to contribute on 0300 030 1951 or email us on dawah@minhajuk.org.
Taj Grill invites you to the world of Pakistani cuisine. With every dish prepared to perfection, why not try our sizzling mixed grill, our famous masala fish, or choose from our selection of freshly made curries and allow the Taj Grill experience to speak for itself. Visit us at 72 Ilford Lane or 508 Ilford High Road or call 0208 262 6476. We also offer catering for all your events. Call us for more information.
A Sadqa Jariyah unlike any other. This year, Allah has blessed us with the incredible opportunity of illuminating the interior of the Dome of the Rock Masjid, the exact place where the Prophet ﷺ was ascended into the heavens. This new lighting system will illuminate the central areas inside the Dome of the Rock. Gain the reward of praying in Masjid Al-Aqsa and give today. Visit muslimhands.org.uk.
With over 40 years experience in the industry, Plachette Carpets is the place to go for all your carpets, laminates, linos and wood flooring. We have an established network of suppliers, which means we can offer some of the best prices in town. We offer free estimates, free measurements and now even free fitting. Call us now on 0208 472 8568 or visit us at 157 Plachette Road, Upton Park, London, E13 0QZ.
Assalamu alaikum listeners, hope you're doing well during these challenging times. Today we'll be talking about NHS mental health services. Feelings of anxiety and depression can affect us all, and you are not alone. If you're struggling to cope with your mental health, or if you're finding it hard to do things you normally enjoy, the NHS is here to help. Today we've got Amandeep Somal, a senior cognitive behavioral therapist and couples therapist in the NHS. Amandeep, welcome to Inspire FM.
Thank you for having me.
Firstly, do the NHS have any mental health services?
Yes, they do. They have free, effective and confidential ways to support people who are having difficulties with their mental health, and that can be accessed through many different ways.
I've often heard about talking therapies. Does talking therapy actually help?
Seeking help through talking therapies can actually be a really great way of supporting someone to overcome their mental health difficulties, such as depression and anxiety, and get them back on track.
Does the help of talking therapy be in person?
We've been a lot more versatile in the way that we offer talking therapy. So it be in person, face to face, or it can be via videos, or it can just be on the telephone. And of course, we also have online courses which you can do in your own time.
Is there help and support available for those people who cannot speak English?
But for people whose first language is not English, you can also use a confidential translators, and also for people who have difficulties with hearing, we also have BSL translators as well.
That's excellent news. Urdu speaking listeners, Urdu may be help available here.
The NHS is here for your mental health and your physical health, and even during this pandemic. We've remained open throughout.
Amandeep, thank you so much for your time. Listeners, the NHS is here to help. Feelings of anxiety and depression can affect us all. If you need help with your mental health, you can refer yourself or without a referral from a GP, or your GP can refer you. Go to nhs.uk/help.
Through your hands, we can shape the future. By supporting an orphan, by quenching someone's thirst, by empowering people through life-changing livelihood projects, by responding to those in urgent need. The future lies in your hands. Muslim Hands, united for the needy.
If you want to advertise your business on Revive FM, then visit www.revivefm.co.uk or contact our sales team now on 07944 565616. That's 07944 565616. Advertise with Revive FM.
Revive FM
94.0. On the radio.
On your mobile.
And online.
Hello and welcome back to Revive FM 94.0 on the Power Hour with your host today, myself, Louise Power. This show is about community matters, diversity and inclusion, a platform for women, leadership, entrepreneurship and inspirational stories. And today in the studio, I have had Gavin McCormack. He has joined me here today from Melbourne, Australia, and he has been telling us his very inspirational story about coming from the UK, actually growing up in Leeds, moving to Sheffield, and then venturing across to the different countries, traveling and then finally ending up in Australia, where he has had a flourishing career in teaching, but many different stories along the way. And just before the break, Gavin was sharing with us when he started teaching in Australia and working at a Muslim school. And he had, learned to speak Urdu, and he had learned to recite the Quran. And he then went to, had an opportunity to work with a school in Australia. And then he worked with these children in terms of personal development, really supporting them, and realized that these children were very traumatized by their experiences. And in light of that, Gavin is now going to be continuing us on his journey and telling us how he built his school in the Himalayas, and will continue telling us his incredible journey. So welcome back, Gavin.
Thank you, Louise. Pleasure to be here. Well remembered, by the way, the whole story there.
I've learned to summarize things, and I'm a good listener. So doing this job, you need to be able to really listen to people and take everything in that they say.
That's right. So anyway, as I was saying, I had this little class, and part of being a Montessori teacher is giving service, and that's about giving back to the community as much as you can. And you've got to model that. You've got to show the kids that it's possible. And I believe that being a teacher is not about distributing knowledge, but it's about being a guide and being the bridge between the child who wants to make a difference and the difference that they want to make. So, I went to Nepal, I went to the Himalayas, I found this little school in the middle of nowhere where there was a lady called Padma, and she was teaching in a dusty old room in the middle of nowhere, and 30 kids in a room, a piece of A4 paper and a biro pen, and that was it. And I said, "Do you really teach here?" And she said, "I've been teaching here for 16 years. I said, "How can you teach in this environment? This is not great." And so I took some photos of that place and her and the kids, and I came back to school in Sydney, where, Sydney's a wealthy city. People here have got money, and children often, and parents and adults, they don't realize how lucky they are. So I showed some pictures to the community and the kids, and I said, "Look, I want to do this, and we want to do this. How can we work together?" And so the little kids went home that night, and one kid came in the morning, and he had 4 colored pencil crayons, and they weren't even sharpened, and he was only 6, and they had a little elastic band around them, and it had a bit of paper that said Nepal. And he came to me and he said, "Gavin, these are for Nepal." And he handed me these 4 colors. And I said, "Thank you so much." And anyway, I had a suitcase, and it was open outside the classroom, and I put them in the suitcase. And a week later, there were 9 suitcases, and they were filled with stuff, and then 2 weeks later, there was 19 suitcases filled with everything you can imagine. There was also $20,000 in my bank account because I ran the local marathon dressed as a granny, and all the kids ran with me. They all got dressed up as grannies. So I flew back to Nepal, and I went to this local community, and I said to the lady, to Padma, I said, "I told you I'd come back." And she said, she started crying. And I said, "I'm here to fix your school up." And it's only one room. So, with some of the money, I bought carpets and I bought paints, and I painted the entire thing. I painted hills and trees and rockets and all this stuff all over the walls. And I put a new carpet down, and all the kids, I got all their materials as pencils and rulers and everything they'd given me. And I decked out this classroom like you can't believe. Like, if I had pictures to show you, maybe I can send them to you later. You can share them with your listeners. This place turned into like this dream. Anyway, nobody came in for that week while I did it. And we had a grand opening. And I opened the door, and she came in. She started crying her eyes out, absolutely crying her eyes out, this lady. And it was magical. It was amazing.
Just you telling me.
But it was amazing for me too. Anyway, we did the school. I went back to school, my own school in Sydney, and I took this photo. I'll never forget it. I've shown it to trillions of people. Not trillions. There's not trillions of people. I've shown it to a lot of people. Yeah. And it was a little boy. It was his first ever picture, and he'd never seen a piece of paper. He'd never used a colored pencil. He was only 6, and he'd drawn his first ever picture, and it was of a house. He drew a little house, and I've got this picture of him holding up his first picture. Anyway, I came back to Sydney, and I went back to that little boy who gave me those 4 pencil crayons. And I've got to be honest, they weren't his pencil crayons. But I said to him, "Remember those pencils you gave me?" And he said, "Yes." And I said, "You see this picture here? This is a little boy on the other side of the world. This is his first ever picture. And it's all thanks to you because you gave me those colors. He used your colors to draw this." Anyway, you know what he said? He said, "I want to do it again." And then just him saying that melted my heart. And the next day he came in with a bag of shoes. And I hadn't even told him we were going to do it again. I was only going to build one school. I thought, that's enough. It's not easy. And then he came in the next day with a bag of shoes, and he said, "These are for Nepal." And I thought, well, I'm going to have to go back to Nepal again now. So we started again. And anyway, we continued, and then 5 years later, we built 10 schools, 2 libraries. I run the 2 biggest teacher training centers in Nepal, one in Bhutal and one in Kathmandu in Tiger Market. Thousands of teachers go through those teacher training centers every year, and it's all because that little boy gave me the bag of shoes. I probably wouldn't have continued otherwise. And it was amazing to see the empowerment in the community, the kids driving this thing, going all over. Like, we were all running marathons, dressed as grannies and doing all this wonderful stuff. And I was just this shuttle bus taking it to the Himalayas and building these schools and coming back. And it got bigger and better and crazier. And anyway, just before the pandemic, we built a school for 500 kids. And I took 10 teachers with me from all over the world. And we built this huge school and we painted it. And it was an incredible feeling. So that's what I've been doing for the last few years, and it's very addictive. But it's, ultimately, it's not about me. It's about seeing children understand their true power to be able to make change in the world. Because ultimately, we want kids who are 6 to know how powerful they are when they're 6. We don't want them to wait. A lot of adults, they get to 60, 70 years old and they go looking for themselves. I've got to find myself. I'm going to go to Goa. I'm going to go to India. I'm going to find myself there. But they don't. It's too late actually at that point. You need to find yourself when you're 6. You need to find out your true purpose. And actually, what you need to do, I learned this over 25 years of teaching. You've got to learn how good it feels to be good as early as possible. Like that's what it's all about. Like, if you can feel that, if you can go, goodness me, I feel good about what I just did, as early as possible, it's very addictive. It's like sugar. You get hooked on it. You can't stop it. And so you just want to be good. You just want to do more good because, it feels so good. It's natural for it to feel good, and so I've been doing that for, quite a long time now. And this year, me and my business partner, we're opening 10 libraries this year in the Himalayas. We've got schools all over the country raising money and building these things. And so we're trying to scale this thing up now to make it even bigger and better because, the impact you can have is enormous.
I feel good just hearing you talk about the feel good factor. And I'm like, can you not come here and run the national curriculum in the UK? We need the feel good factor here. I feel like I want you for my own personal tutor for my son. I feel like I want you to come and join my son's school. I feel like I need you to try to be part of implementing the policies, procedures, and process for the Department of Education in England. And the reason I'm saying all of this is because I'm a school governor here in the UK. And although I think that we have a relatively good educational system here in the UK, I can see where the focus isn't so much on that feel-good factor for children. And in some of the experiences that I have had, there is much more emphasis on the line of discipline, where children aren't towing the line in terms of maybe the core values of that particular school or the expectations of the curriculum, and children that don't maybe quite fit into the conventional educational form of doing things, or don't think perfectly with the British curriculum, tend to slide out of education. But they have these, like you were saying, they haven't been able to find their feel-good factor, their cape, their wings. And it saddens me that happens so much. And a lot of children from underrepresented groups, it happens to as well. And I feel so inspired by what you do. And I just feel like we need so much more of your leadership here in the UK. What can I do, or what can we do to implement some of these really wonderful things that are happening, in these initiatives that you're doing across the globe?
Well, look, I did the keynote speech at the World Education Summit on Sunday night. There was 250,000 people there, all over the world, and they asked me that. Like, the topic was, what does education look like in a post-pandemic world? And so I did this, 40-minute speech on what I think it looks like. And it's not about post-pandemic world. It's just about the world. Like, it should have already happened a very long time ago. And the problem is, and I've just been talking about this with my dear friend, is that, what happens right now in the world is this, and this is it's a two-pronged approach. But, you have these teachers that go to university, and you have this really inspirational lecturer who trains them to be a teacher. Now, the inspirational lecturer can be as inspirational as he or she wants. And they've got to get these teachers to feel like, I'm going to be the teacher of my dreams. I'm going to go to school. I'm going to get a job as a teacher. I'm going to change the world. I'm going to get those kids exactly where they need to be. I don't care. We've all watched, these films where there's an underdog community and the teacher brings them all through and it's all heroic, and they want to be that. You want to be that, right? And you get into school, you get this job, and the principal says, well done, you got the job, Barbara. Lovely job here. Well done. Welcome to Pinkerton Primary School. And he says, here's the curriculum. And she says, well, it's a bit boring, this curriculum. It says I've got to teach Tudors and Victorian Britain, and I'm not even from England. I'm actually Chinese. I'm actually from Bangladesh. I'd love to teach some history from my own culture. And he says, hey, look, got to be careful, because Ofsted are coming in a couple of years, and I'm petrified that when they come in, they're going to, give us a bad mark as a school, and we look bad in the rankings, and then the government will tell me I'm a terrible principal. I might even lose my job. So I'll tell you what, Barbara, forget all that inspirational stuff that you had in your mind and all that stuff you want to do. Just teach this curriculum and say the words on this document to the kids, and get the kids to write their words down in the book, and then tick them all, put them in the file. I'll come and check them. And then when Ofsted come in, it's all good. We get 5 points and we're looking great. So just go and do that, Barbara. So Barbara just walks to a class with her head down low and goes, this is not what I signed up for. And she goes to a class and she tries to be the inspirational teacher that she wanted to be, but she's kind of restricted by the curriculum and how restrictive it is, and the threat of Ofsted and the assessment and the lack of trust coming from above. And she sells her soul, and she's not inspirational as a teacher, and it's not her fault. And in turn, the kids aren't inspired either, because she's at the front talking, very flat, like a piece of paper, because it's not about what she wants to say. It's not about what she wants to teach. And, the knock-on effect is the kids end up being uninspired, and they lose their mojo, and, they fall out the cracks, like you said. But what actually should happen is this, in my eyes, and I've been running a school for a long time, so I know how it works when you give them trust. And teachers are professionals. This is a fact, right? You've got a degree, so you're a professional. You're a doctor. You're an architect. You don't go to the doctor and say, "You're sure this is the right medication?" You just trust him. You don't go for a surgery and say, "Before you put me under, are you sure you've got your anesthetic mix right?" You just trust they've got it right. And so what we actually need to do is everybody just to say, these teachers, they know how to teach. Let them teach. Let them teach the way they want to teach. Like, everyone's unique. Everyone's individual. Louise, you run your Power Hour radio station. You run it exactly how you want to run it. Like, you run it in the way you want to run it. No one tells you. Read it like this. And that's why it's so successful. No one tells me how to talk, because, I talk how I like to talk. And so our teachers are exactly the same thing. And what happens is Barbara then goes, I'm actually got Chinese heritage. I know it says I've got to teach Tudor history, but actually the outcome is actually just history. So let me just teach history. And I'll say to the kids, this is what actually needs to happen, Louise. I'll say to the kids, hello, everybody. My name's Barbara, and we're going to learn history today. Now, I'm actually Chinese. I'm from Beijing. So I'm going to teach you a little bit about the Qing dynasty and the history of how tea was invented. And she says to the kids, do you know how tea was invented? And the kids are like, I have no idea how tea was invented. And maybe you don't know, Louise, and nobody on your show knows. I'll tell you how tea was invented. And in the Qing dynasty, there was an emperor sitting in the garden with all his minions, and he was talking away. And in Chinese culture, in the Qing dynasty, the history was you drank tepid water, warm water. You used to cleanse your body inside out. As he was talking in his big spiel, a wind gust came, and a tea leaf, unbeknown to him, fell into his cup and turned his water green. He drank it. It tasted delicious. And he said, take all the leaves off those trees. We need to put them in all of our water. And boom, tea was invented. Now, you tell that to kids in a beautiful, inspirational way with pictures and whatnot, and they're all like, wow, that's wild. I didn't know that was the thing. But then you say this, Louise. You say this. Now, I'd like you to find something in history from any country, any continent you like. You choose. It's all on you. And you go away. You can sit where you want. You can work with whoever you like. But in 2 hours, you're going to come back to the circle or the group or the front of the class. And you're going to teach us exactly what you found out. And all the kids go off. And one kid's like, well, I'm actually from Nigeria. I'm going to go and do some history of Nigerian history. And he goes off and he comes back and he has voice and agency and autonomy and he's inspirational. And all the kids are learning from each other. There's mutual respect. Everyone's included. It's inclusivity. There's empathy, understanding. There's love. There's all the stuff that's missing. It's all missing right now. But as soon as you take that and you use that as your methodology, suddenly it's all back, because you're saying to the kids, I trust you. I trust you, and I don't mind if you fail, it's okay. I don't mind which country you choose, it's totally fine. I don't mind who you work with, that's totally fine too. And when you come to the group later on, I hope we can all learn something from you, because I'm a human just like you. I know I'm called a teacher, but it doesn't mean I know everything. I don't. But I do know some stuff, and so do you. And so when you kind of take that on, suddenly you have this equality in your room and equity. And it doesn't matter if you're, from Africa, from India, from China, you all have history. Everyone has history. Everyone has something to research. And therefore, you just build this level of equality in your room, and everyone's welcome and everyone's included. And it works. I've done it for 20 years and it's beautiful.
And when I was at school, we learned, my parents are born here, but my grandparents from the Caribbean. And when I was at school, that's exactly what we learned. We learned about the British history, and everything was very, very rigid in that way. And the history that we learned about Black people was slavery, which of course isn't all of history for anybody that is Black or African or Caribbean. So when you were speaking, I'm just filled with, like, I'm bursting to be like, we need, it's almost like I'd love you to put everything in a bottle and then every teacher to drink exactly your recipe, because we need this so much in the classroom. And my son's 8, Gavin, and he's really struggled. And I know so many other friends with children that have struggled with the curriculum here in the UK. And I just feel like there is something that needs to be done, even more so post-COVID, because whatever issues we had in the curriculum beforehand is going to be exacerbated now because of COVID. I just think, there is so much to be done. And in fact, when this show does go out, I will be reaching out to the Department for Education here in the UK and asking them to listen to our show and really trying to get them to connecting with you and your team, because if there's anything that's going to be happening going forward, I think that organizations like Upschool and yourself should be involved in that off the ground. And
we're actually doing something. I've got to say this to you. We've been working for the last term and just with schools across Australia, and in 5 weeks' time, I've written lots of children's books, right? So I have this kind of, not saying I'm a master at children's books because I'm nowhere near Roald Dahl or anything like that, but I know how to write a children's book. And so, my duty then is to pay that forward and pass that knowledge on to future generations and to children. And so, if you go to schools nowadays, what happens is the teacher might say, and this is no criticism of the teacher, because I know that teachers they're trapped in this bubble of, you've got to do this because this is what I expect. If you think about writing a story, for example, right? You were at school and the teacher says, you're going to write a story. And the kids say, what do you mean I'm going to write a story? What about? And they say, I don't know, just make something up. Like, that's not enough. That's not enough at all. You need a purpose. You need a reason to write that story. You give the child the reason and you watch the story that comes out then. So, next term, and we had a meeting a couple of nights ago, 450 schools all across the world came to this meeting, and they were like, we're definitely doing this. And the idea is in term 2, which is coming in a few weeks, and the school terms in Australia are aligned with the ones in the UK as well. So in 5 weeks' time, schools go back here, and it's about a similar time with you. And what happens is schools across the world are going to enter this program with us. And what we're going to do week by week is guide children all over the world for free on how to write a picture book. But the very first thing before we even start writing any words is to say to the kids, we want you to choose something in the world from this list to make a difference in. So you can look at this huge list, and it might be you're building a vegetable patch in your school playground. You might be, getting a cane for a blind child. It costs $10. You might be building, an entire school for $50,000, whatever it is. Wherever it is that your school community can afford to do, whatever they feel is attainable, they choose something as a school mission. They say, and we've collated this huge list of everything you can imagine. Like, it's crazy. Like giving a loan to a lady in Afghanistan of £10 is one of the things you can choose. Or building a library in the Himalayas is another one. There's so many of them. But before they even start putting pen to paper, the kids have got this thing where they're saying, "I'm writing a story now for a reason." And they start this journey of writing. So they learn about setting and characters and, the complication, the resolution, all this stuff. And then they design their own picture book. And then we publish it for them on this virtual library. So they've done all this work and it's amazing. And then the book doesn't just go in their file or their folder. It goes online. It's uploaded. And people all over the world can read it. Doesn't matter what you've written. And you might have a mushroom who moves to Mars and takes over the planet and then colonizes it. That's fine. Not a problem whatsoever. But you might write Henry VIII's life story as a picture book, and that's totally fine too. It really doesn't matter what the content is. It's all about the intention. They upload it to this virtual library. The whole world gets to read it for free. But here's the amazing bit. There's a little button underneath every book. And that little button says buy. And anyone around the world can click buy. So they go, you know what? I'm going to buy a copy of that book. And then when they click buy, something really special happens. When they purchase it, they go to the checkout and it says, this is going to cost you £20 or whatever the cost is. And then when they click that, it says, where would you like your profits to go? There's a little drop down. Where would you like it to go? And you see that the boy who wrote the book, his aim was to buy a blind boy a cane for $30. And you say, yes, I want my profits to go to what he chose at the very beginning. So you buy. The book arrives at your door as the shopper, but the profit goes to his little thing. And he sees his little thermometer go up $6 or whatever that is. And he's well on his way to getting that blind boy a cane. And when he hits $30, the blind boy gets a cane and he gets his feedback saying, goodness me, I worked really hard, not for a tick, not for a grade, not for a point, not for a score, not to impress my teacher or my mum or my dad. I worked really hard on that book because there was a blind boy who needed to see. And because I put pen to paper and I tried my best, then he now can walk around. And that's, you give access to that to the whole world suddenly, and you'll find everybody starts finding that education has intention and purpose and reason, and kids all feel empowered, and they go on to be 16-year-olds, 20-year-olds, and they know what it feels like to be good, and they know how powerful they are from a very young age. And you won't have a world like you've got today. People won't be throwing litter in the streets. They won't be polluting the atmosphere. They won't be overfishing. They won't be dropping bombs on each other's houses because they know how good it feels to feel good. They'll do the good stuff. They want to just build it into our makeup of who we are.
And there are so many children that, there are so many children that don't get that at home. So if you go to school, that's the one place where you're able to actually be yourself, and for somebody to be able to ignite that fire within you, your purpose, your intention, what it is you're good at, and I think that's really important, especially people that don't have that kind of children that don't have that incubation at home necessarily, right? You can go to school and get that. And I'm just looking at some of the things that you've done. You done Kenny Dalglish's life story as a rhyming book. You've done publishing and TED speaking, so many different things. And how did the Kenny Dalglish life story rhyming picture book come about?
That's a really crazy story, actually, that one. I was just writing children's books for fun, just because I thought, I wanted to prove it to that lady. They said I couldn't do it. I said, I'll show you. So then I just wrote 5. And, just writing them and saving money up in my bank and then printing them on my own and then selling them on this little website. And people were buying them all over the place. But they weren't selling really well. I was just selling a few hundred here and there. And I didn't even actually make any money out of any of them, in actual fact. And then one day I sent one to Standard Chartered Accountants in London. Someone, for some weird reason, bought all of my books one day at Christmas, and the address was Standard Chartered Accountants in London. So anyway, I put them in a box and I sent them to Standard Chartered, and then I didn't think anything of it. I just thought, well, it must be someone just bought them. That's fine. And then I got a phone call. I was at school and it was at lunchtime, and it was someone from very high up in Standard Chartered Accountants. They used to be the sponsor of Liverpool Football Club, and he said, "Oh, are you Gavin McCormack?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Have you written these books? The one about the cow and the elephant and the penguin?" I said, "Oh, it's me." Yeah. And he said, "Do you know anything about Kenny Dalglish?" And I said, "Yeah, I do. You know, he's a really famous football player. I used to be a football player myself, so he used to be a hero of mine." He goes, "How do you feel about writing his life story as a picture book?" And I said, "Oh my God, is this a joke?" And he said, "It's not a joke." Anyway, so they asked me to write it, and so I went away and I researched his life for 6 months. I found out all these little secrets, nothing controversial or lovely. He's a very beautiful man, and I wrote his life story as a rhyming picture book, and it involves the Queen, and I put all this wonderful stuff in it. And then I got paid a very small amount of money to do it. It didn't really make any cash out of it whatsoever. In fact, I didn't even get any royalties from the book, which is a bit sad. Anyway, because I'm not very good at reading contracts, and I'm not a lawyer or anything. I just did it for fun. Anyway, maybe that'll be my demise eventually. But never mind. But then something really cool happened.
It's a learning curve.
Yeah, it was a serious learning curve. But then what happened was, in lockdown, Jurgen Klopp, the Liverpool manager, he decided one day just to read it live on Facebook. And then my phone started going crazy. All my mates in England were like, "Oh my God, Jurgen Klopp's reading your book." And then I clicked online, and there he is with 1.2 million people watching as he reads my book during lockdown. I thought, I wrote those words in that book, and I felt so proud. It was pretty amazing, actually. So,
I'm so honestly, it is amazing. It really is amazing, and time is going on. So I wanted to make sure that I asked you that, because I thought, how did that come about? And I just think it's just awesome. Before we go, can you tell us where the children can connect to be part of this story, creating the storybook?
Of course, yeah, no problem. Of course I can. So look, this is something that's available, and people often say things are for free, but they're not for free. And obviously I've told you my story, so you know who I am, and there's no way I would be making some secret money out of this. But the fact is that this is a program for free for the entire world, and I am the one who's going to be in your classroom, basically, or in your house, or wherever it is that you'll be connecting with this. All the lessons are delivered by me, so I teach them just like I'm talking to you now. I'm like, "Hello, everybody. I'm Gavin McCormack, and this week we're learning about adjectives," and I teach it all. I design all the task cards and all the workflow and everything, and everything's provided completely for free. And all you need to do is go to upschool.co, not com, but upschool.co, and click there, and you'll find write a book, and you click it, register, and then I'll be in touch with you, and I'll just deliver all of those lessons to your
live?
course.
Is it live?
It's not live, no. It's not
okay,
live.
That's fine, because the only reason, and it's a good thing that isn't live, I tell you why, because you're in a different time zone. So effectively, I can put my son on it and tell family in America or whatever, and they can all do it too, which is great.
Basically, yes.
I love that. I love
Everyone.
that.
And the real reason behind the whole thing of doing it recorded is that you've got, in my mind, you've got all these girls in Afghanistan who are locked in their houses, they can't go out, but they've got the internet.
That's it.
And so they've got the internet, they click the link, and I'm like, "Hello, everybody. Would you like to write a book and tell your story? Would you like to be, Malala, this amazing young lady?" Give them the keys to be able to give them a voice. And if we can get to all those children who have the internet and they can't get to education, then that will be a huge success. So look, I know you've got connections with the Department of Education in London, and you can get into the big players and things like that. So this will be amazing.
And my awesome school there in St. Elizabeth School. So I'll
St. Elizabeth School. Look that up. Yes, online.
Yep, St. Elizabeth. So I'll be making sure that we are connected in as well, and I'll be sharing this interview with us.
I know you're running out of time. I'll give you a really quick heads up. Is that I've been invited on a boat. This ship's going to the Arctic Circle in June, and they've invited me and my business partner and friend Richard Mills to go on the Arctic on this boat and teach live from the Arctic. So imagine David Attenborough. David Attenborough was a teacher, and then you go there, and there's a polar bear, and you say, "This week we're learning about polar bears." There's a polar bear right behind me, and the polar bear's like, "Raw!" Anyway, no, not that close, because I won't last there. This is my last lesson. I'm not going to make it. No, I'm just joking. But, and all of this is free. Every term there's a new one, and they're totally free every single time.
Oh, that is, most definitely. This will be definitely going out to as many people as I possibly can. within the Department of Education and just across the board, anybody in terms of that's involved in education, and of course young people with children in my network. Gavin, I feel like I need another show with you another time, because there's still so much I would love to say. And I've just been really inspired. I want to say thank you for sharing, thank you for taking your backstory, your journey, your whatever it was that you went through, and making an impact on the world. This is about generational change and legacy. Isn't about some of the things that we think about, money, and like you were talking about, cars in fancy cars. It's about those things that when we are gone and there's other generations behind us, that we have been able to make impact and change. And I'd like to say thank you on behalf of all the mums in the world. Thank you for the impact and change that you are making on the young people across the globe, and continuing to make. And no doubt I'll be keeping in close contact with you, because I definitely want to be part of your network to continue the fantastic work that you and your colleagues have been doing. So thank you so much for joining me today.
I also say thank you to you for being an inspirational woman. It's amazing to see your journey. I see that you're doing these amazing things and empowering women around you and showing that anything's possible. I mean, we're all in this together, in actual fact, and you might not know this, but there are people looking at you, and you're a role model to many. And so, we're all in this together. And if we can just shine a light on how good it is to be good, then, we can fix this thing. Good always overcomes evil, as you know. And, let's just keep on trucking and trying our best. It's all we can do, right?
100%. And there's more good to be done. We do our little bit, you do your little bit, and hopefully, those parts will eventually, create something for somebody else. Somebody else will never experience what we did, put it that way.
Yeah, that's right. I agree with you completely.
So, and I would say good night from you. Good night to you.
Good night to you.
And it's now good afternoon to us. Thank you,
Yes.
thank you to everybody that has been listening. Thank you to those of you who will be listening, because you will be listening, because Gavin is fast forward, so that we'll be having people listen retrospect of this show. Thank you for joining us today on the Power Hour. We will be back again next week, Thursday at 12 o'clock, and we will see you then. Take care, and good night to you, and goodbye from us.
Bye.
Goodbye, Gavin.
If you want to advertise